All right, we're learning some new details about the plan for Trump's proposed Department of Government Efficiency. In an op-ed published by the Wall Street Journal, billionaires Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy argue protections against firing workers for political reasons do not apply to them. They also revealed some of the programs they might target. I want to bring in CBS News senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe to talk more about this. So interesting, Ed, that there's a part of the electorate and the body politic that rails against billionaires and the privileged class, and yet here you have two billionaires who are talking about cutting government workers, many who don't earn all that much money. So what did we learn from this op-ed?
A few things, Vlad. First of all, they both make clear they are doing this on a volunteer basis and expect that their work will be done by July 4th, 2026, which is, of course, the 250th birthday of the United States of America. The big goal ultimately is to find $2 trillion in government spending that can be slashed or pulled back in various ways. Out of a $6 trillion budget, that's going to require a lot of spending. They argue that the president, given some recent Supreme Court rulings, has the ability now through executive order to essentially pause or completely cancel thousands of federal regulations across American society that they believe will ultimately save money, because then they can go and say, if this is the group of people at this agency that oversee or enforce that regulation, we can now lay them off and we'll help them find work in the private sector. They're also calling for, among other things, a 5-day-a-week in-the-office policy, which doesn't currently exist across much of the federal government in various departments where you don't necessarily have to be on the job in person, arguing that if there are people who don't agree with that policy, they're more than welcome to retire and, again, help cut savings through attrition. Whether or not this ever goes after some of the biggest parts of the federal government, wasteful Pentagon spending, as they put it, or touch things like Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and the Affordable Care Act, remains to be seen. But ultimately, they're trying to make a big push here, especially early in the Trump administration, to identify billions, if not trillions of dollars in saving and fulfill a big campaign pledge, which was to cut back on federal spending and the scope and power of the federal government, and do so in a way that would fulfill a big campaign pledge for President-elect Trump.
Yeah, and it'll be very interesting to see how it rolls out, noting, of course, that Elon Musk is the beneficiary often of that government spending because he receives money from the federal government for his various technology, Starlink and other satellite uses that the United States pays him for. But yeah, it'll be very interesting to see what those legal challenges also look like, Ed. So let's talk now about Trump's pick for Secretary of Defense, staying in that defense realm. Pete Hegseth is meeting with some senators on Capitol Hill. That's happening today amid that police report that revealed more of those sexual assault allegations that we learned about earlier this week. So what are the details of the report, and who's he meeting with today?
It details an allegation, an incident in Monterey, California, a few years back, where a woman says she went to the police a few days after the alleged incident, claiming that she had been assaulted by Hegseth in some way. The Trump team here in Florida this morning saying in response to it that the report, quote, corroborates what Mr. Hegseth's attorneys have said all along. The incident was fully investigated and no charges were filed because police found the allegations to be false. It adds Pete Hegseth is a highly respected combat veteran who will honorably serve our country when he's confirmed as the next Secretary of Defense, just like he honorably served our country on the battlefield in uniform. As you mentioned, he is on Capitol Hill this morning, meeting with Republican senators in anticipation of confirmation hearings. John Barrasso, the number 3 Senate Republican from Wyoming, saying in a statement in part that, to him at least, Hegseth, quote, pledged that the Pentagon will focus on strength and hard power, not the current administration's woke political agenda. Barrasso adds, national security nominations have a history of quick confirmations in the Senate. I look forward to Pete's hearing and a vote on the floor in January. So, among the most supportive of Republican senators, and Barrasso would be among them, the argument is this is much ado about nothing. They want him in place to, as Barrasso infers there, refocus the military on actual matters of war and military operations, less on a series of changes made that affect and reflect the change of the rank and file in recent years regarding women in combat, LGBTQ rights, and other changes that have been made by the Biden administration and have been a big obsession and focus of the Trump team and Republicans writ large over the last year or so.
Yeah, again, another interesting development, which will be interesting to see how it works out. Ed, I recall doing a story a couple of years ago on female Marines who were in combat arms and how many of them joined the Naval Academy without ever really knowing that before their time in the military, women were not able to serve in the roles that they are currently serving in. In fact, one young female officer was an artillery officer in charge of a platoon of mostly men, and she was a woman. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens in the months and the years ahead. Ed, as always, my friend, we appreciate your reporting. Thank you.